All right, welcome to another episode of the LogiCast. My name is BlankaKong, and today I'm joined by Mr. Esoteric Skills and Gunner Eos, and we're going to be talking about mods in video games. So, how do we feel about them? What are some experiences we've had with mods in the past, whether community built or otherwise? And I guess I'll start because I'm already talking. So, I'm good for mods. I think mods are great. I think mods tend to, at least from what I've seen, tend to unlock a game's true potential as well as polishes a game to what, quite frankly, should have been delivered in the initial launch of the game. One example of that would be all of the great work that the mod communities have done with a lot of the Bethesda games like Oblivion and Skyrim and the Fallout games.
Yeah,
Those games fully modded, I mean, are totally different and polished beyond belief. It's insane what the community has done with those particular titles. A game that I'm playing now that I've mentioned in a few past episodes that I find myself playing a lot when I have free time is Project Zomboid, which has a lot of community support for mods and a lot of great mods at that. So I haven't messed with the mods yet, but I know of them and I've watched a lot of videos on them, and it's some really cool shit. I'm just not ready for the mods, right? Like running zombies and stuff like that. I was like, I don't think I'm ready for that yet. I'm still learning the game and getting comfortable with the controls and stuff. But I think mods is great. However, mods do come with a certain level of controversy. There are some publishers and developers who don't like mods because um, they're not approved by them, and quite frankly, it makes them look kind of shitty and lazy when the community can patch out problems in a week that takes them months or even years to address. So that's something we could talk about as well. So, anyway, I've said enough. What do you guys think about mods in video games?
Um, I would say I absolutely agree with you, Kong. I think uh, mods are absolutely great. It allows fans and people who enjoy whatever series that they're modding. It allows them to be creative in ways that the companies that created the game that they appreciate have not. One of the mods that I do see quite frequent are like with the Monster Hunter series, where they will implement monsters that didn't make an appearance and kind of skin them with existing monsters and make them fight differently. I feel like that's a pretty creative approach. Um, a couple of others would be fighting games, for example, where certain characters that didn't make an appearance that said modders would want to have in the game, they created and implemented. Um, I feel personally that it's definitely it's a good thing. It's not only a way for people to show their creativity who are interested in modding, but it also allows companies to get like a gander at what people want and get inspired by certain things that were implemented. Like for example, you mentioned Project Zomboid with the running zombies. Like maybe in their next iteration, the next build, they're like, yeah, let's kind of like dig deeper into that and build that. And you know, where the modders allowed them to walk with an idea, they're gonna take it and run with it. Um, I do understand in regards to some degree pertaining to like companies being upset about it, where they're like, oh well, you're doing this and you're doing that, and we don't like it. Um, you know, for people, how can I explain this? I feel like they look at it as their art project, and they want to work on it and complete things themselves. But I also get it from the modders perspective, where it's like, well, you guys didn't give us a complete functioning game, so we're going to take it off your hands and make our experience even better. um which I find great, because if they purchase something, they should be allowed to do that, in my opinion. That's pretty much my take on it for now. What say you, Gunner? Like, what are your thoughts on it?
Um. Okay. So overall, I don't really have a problem with mods, because as long as they stay in like the single player realm, like if you mod your game and it's a single player game, you could go nuts with it. As far as I'm concerned, you can add Sora from Kingdom Hearts into freaking Monster Hunter for all I care. It's fine. It's your game. Um, I know you both of you guys mentioned places like Bethesda not really liking certain mods or kind of developing their games knowing that their communities are large enough that they will mod some of their, let's say, you know, things that should have been checked in quality assurance, such as, it's become a meme that every Fallout game and every Elder Scrolls game has a unofficial patch that fixes things like quests not completing, soft locks in the game. That, in my opinion, that shouldn't be left to the community. That's the developer's job to, one, develop a game where it doesn't happen, and two, I get that games like Skyrim and Fallout have a lot of moving parts in it, and some of these parts can get messed up and they can collide and weird things happen. But then it should be on the developer themselves to correct it, not the modding community. Like if the modding community wants to add Space Marine armor in 40 in Fallout to replace the power armor, then that's the community that can do it. That's fine. But I think the developer should make a functioning game, and then mods and the modding community kind of, like in Project Zomboid's case, they can add to it and build upon it, and instead of fixing what shouldn't fall on the community. Um, but I think companies do that because Rockstar is also pretty guilty of that with GTA 5, where they'll actually strike mods or issue cease and desists to mod creators because they're doing something for free that Rockstar wanted to charge for. So Rockstar didn't like certain money mods that they have that gave you money because they want people to buy shark cards. It's hard for you to buy shark cards if you can mod money into. Now, some people will call that cheating, I guess. Yeah, because at that point, it's a multiplayer function, so you're involving yourself with other people. If you want to mod infinite ammo or infinite money in the single player for GTA, I don't think that should be a problem. But if it's for the multiplayer, it could be a problem. But I know, Rockstar has been accused of stifling mods because they later on want to sell it. And that is just like, that's pretty scummy because these companies rely on their communities to keep their game alive. I mean, people are still playing Skyrim, and look how long Skyrim came out. So, like, if you burn your community too much, you'll lose the very foundation that keeps your game afloat. So that's another thing that companies realize that people enjoy modding their game and they like mods, so they go, what if I charge you $10 for a cool looking armor skin? And that's the corpos doing what corpos do. And I guess for like a person, this is like very personal. I don't really mod my games because I kind of like to stick to the aesthetic of the game world. Now, what I mean by that is, I'll take Monster Hunter for example. When World and now Rise, when World got big, and especially when it came to PC, the modding community around World blew up. So you saw a lot of mods like they would add monsters that didn't exist. There are mods of like red Fatalis, white Fatalis, when only the regular Fatalis exists in World. And you would see weird mods like you can play as 2B in Monster Hunter World. You can play as Doomslayer. You can play as Naruto. That kind of stuff I don't like because it just obviously clashes too hard with the original art style of the game, and I don't like art. I don't like things that clash with the world that the game is building. So if I was to mod, I would mod armor that fits in with Monster Hunter and not try to look like Doomslayer. To me, that just clashes too much. But hey, that's just me. That's just a personal take. Again, it's a single player game. If you're not involving other people, forcing people to like interact with your modding, and you're just doing it on your own in your single environment, hell, at that point, I don't mind. Go for it. Mod everything. Change every monster, every armor set. That's up to you. It's your game. You play it how you want. But me personally, I like to keep the art style and the characters in the world that the developers created, and I don't like to stray too far from it. That's just me.
Yeah, I can definitely get by that. You essentially don't want mods that would break the immersion of the game. Which makes a lot of sense
Yeah,
because
essentially. Yeah.
which makes a lot of sense simply because like you purchased a game for, I mean, not only just the playability, but also the lore. Like some of us are into fantasy creatures, so we're going to be more inclined to playing games like that, and we want more realistic figures as opposed to like just cartoon characters being in the game. um but that's the thing that I do love about modding is that it's an option, and it's either you're the person that wants, if you were to mod, that is, you're the person that want things that are going to fit well with the game that you're playing, or you're probably the type of mod is like, I wonder if I put this outlandish character that doesn't fit into this realm, I wonder how that would look, just like mad scientist, so to speak. It's I think it's fun. I think it's is overall it's pretty interesting, and to your point about companies being upset, and trying to like penny pinch people for certain things that are created, that I agree, that's absolutely like shitty, and it should not happen at all. um you know I personally have not like really dived into like games that consist of mods. I think the very first one that I've got, well, I mean, the last one I've gotten into really was Unreal Tournament. Um, back in the like way back in the
Oh, that
days.
game is like super modded. Yeah.
Yeah, yeah, and I found it really interesting because people would mod their room, they would mod like different guns, certain characters. I found it to be super interesting. But I've never got into like playing other mods aside from that. I more so like to watch and see like the different types of mods. Because I think one of the other reasons is due to the fact that I'm mostly a console gamer. So for the most part, it's really difficult to, at least to my knowledge, to see things modded on consoles.
No.
Um, so I just recently acquired like a Steam Deck, and hopefully I can like dig deep into that because it's practically a computer, and see the different things that people do. But for the most part, for now, when it comes to modding, I'm usually watching it on YouTube and seeing the different things that people do. Um, I've even seen things along the lines of like the Souls games where they're creating randomizers with like enemies being in different positions, and items that you typically see in certain like chests after a playthrough, they're no longer there. Like I find that to be very interesting because in my opinion, it revitalizes the game, but it also can in turn kind of break the game because there's no reason why you should see um the gaping dragon in the beginning of like a regular stage, so
Yeah.
I, I feel like modding is fun. They're more enjoyable if they're reasonable, depending upon what's being done. Um, some people like to overwhelm them with like just break shit, as I said, and others are, they just want to kind of add components to the lore that already exists. So, I mean, let people mod.
Yeah. I'm a big fan of quality. I am a big fan and of quality of life mods. I know Monster Hunter World specifically had For those that don't know, if you would slam monsters against the wall or like break parts, they had a chance to drop shinies. Like there were like little shiny items on the ground, and if you pick it up, that's how you got your Wyvern Stone, or sometimes you get a plate or a ruby out of it. And if you played base world with no mods, sometimes they were hard to see and they were easily missable. So I remember I was watching a YouTuber and he had a mod where anytime a shiny would drop, there would be like a little, like a, not a game breaking, but a little pillar of light that would come up so you could see the shiny better. Kind of like how Diablo or Borderlands does their drops where it's like shining and then you see like a pillar come out so you can't miss it, you can see it. And I looked at that, I was like, oh, that's pretty cool. That's pretty cool. Or like there were mods to kind of resize the health bar to make it really small, kind of make it more sleek instead of a giant health bar. So those kind of like visual quality of life mods, I actually kind of support those because like the shinies, I remember because I played the game base, normal, unmodded, I would miss a lot of shinies. And I'd be like, oh, that mod would have been really nice to have if I was playing Monster Hunter on PC, for example. So those type of mods, I usually don't have a problem because they're like I said, they're quality of life. They just make your playing experience easier, better, and they can add like the smaller health bars, just can add more of a sleek design, and just have less clutter on the screen because some people like to play with as little UI elements as possible. So hey, those mods I fully support because it's just like they just make things easier.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned Monster Hunter because that takes me back to when you guys were playing Freedom Unite. At that time, I wasn't in there, and um, y'all were discussing mods for like monster HP because in that game there were no HP bars. Like, well, there were no like numbers in terms of like how hard you were hitting, how much damage you were dealing, and you couldn't tell whether the monster or not was like close to death during those times. So yeah, having mods like that to assist gameplay and quality of life is a really good thing.
Yeah, funny you mentioned that because there was there would be some people who consider that cheating. I guess in the Monster Hunter case, I mean, to me, it's a fine line. You could call it cheating, but knowing that Raphalos has 1,000 HP, and when I hit it, I do 50. I take off 50 points of HP. I don't know how that's cheating because Raphalos can still be Raphalos.
Yeah, like I
Um,
wouldn't consider that cheating simply because it's not taken away from it's not giving you an advantage, so to speak. It's just notifying you as to what's happening and what you're up against and how long it's going to take you to finish said quest.
yeah,
Like,
it's just more
you know,
information. So like if you hit the leg and it does 10, and you hit the head and it does 50, oh okay, the head's the weak zone. So let me concentrate on that. I mean, people used to give others flack on Final Fantasy. When I used to play, I used to use something known as a parser, which basically just tells me my damage and how much damage I'm doing over the course of a fight. And I love the parser because it would let me know visually with hard numbers how well I'm doing. So it's like, am I the weak link on my team? Am I pulling my weight? And for me, that's vital information that doesn't affect anybody else's gameplay because it's only on my PC that it's installed. But there were a lot of people, and you would see threads on the forums that would go like 20 pages long, 20 pages long about a debate whether parsers are cheating, unfair advantage, people using them to grief. And it's just like, I I guess, but to me, it's just useful information. And that's what some of those mods are. They just provide you with useful information that that isn't provided to you. And again, it's in a game like Monster Hunter, Final Fantasy. I can kind of see it because it's an MMO and it's involving other people. But in a game like Monster Hunter, look, if you want to get the spreadsheet on Raphalos in real time, hey, look, play it. It's your game. You're playing it like that. I have no problem with it.
I mean, in regards to like the Final Fantasy one, I don't really see an issue with it simply because the end goal is for you to learn how to be an effective player to the team. It's a team-based game. It's not like you're doing a mod to allocate more points towards your character or to gain an extra slot for a particular skill or something like that. You're simply utilizing information that's not being provided to you in a way to understand whether or not you're pulling your weight in a team. And I feel like that's very important. I do see that it can be used as a form of like grief because it's like, well, I did this in the game, I'm doing better than you. But it's like,
Yeah, I've seen it before. I've seen people go like, "Oh, I have to like remove you from the fight," and they go, "Why?" It's like, well, because you're doing less DPS than the white mage, and normally you wouldn't know that. There would be no way of you knowing that. But if you had it and you saw the numbers, yeah, you'd know. So it's a sticky situation. I don't play Final Fantasy anymore, but I'm pretty sure if I went onto the forums right now, I'd see a fucking forum post that's more than 10 pages long about fucking parsers. Happens every time.
I mean, I don't know. I don't play F14. I tried it years ago, briefly, and I spent all my time mining because I'm just a loot goblin at heart, really. So I didn't really play the game, but in any case, if I did play it, as far as playing like the dungeons and doing like the what would be considered the normal content, air quotes, I would want to know how well I'm doing. Especially me, I would have played like a tank class most likely, and that's a really important role. I would want to know if I'm keeping hate or if I'm, you
Right.
know, if I'm doing my part properly, you know, if I'm picking the right routes, assuming this is like a dungeon with multiple routes, or whatever the case. Like I would want to know all this information so that I'm not burdening my teammates, right? And also to just play at a what would be considered peak performance. So I don't think there's anything wrong with that. I mean, throwing it in people's faces and being like, "Hey, you're a shitty player." I could see why
Yeah.
that would create problems. That's a different conversation. And I'll be honest with you, I probably wouldn't be as direct as that example, but I would probably criticize players if I know that if they're underperforming, and if there are certain expectations on a raid team, I'm gonna say, hey, listen, maybe don't use that rotation, maybe use this rotation, maybe, you know, you figure it out. Like you got to do something because there's no reason you're playing warrior and the white mage is out damaging you. That doesn't make any sense, right?
yeah,
So I would still address it. What were you
yeah.
gonna say, Esoteric? My bad.
No, I was gonna say that makes perfect sense simply because of the fact that MMOs, and I know the viewers are probably like, oh my god, they're talking a lot about MMOs right now. But I just wanted to add that MMOs are very time consuming, very team oriented, and very meticulous in a sense that you have to hold your own during a fight. Like the fight does not, well, let me speak particularly with Final Fantasy 14 because I'm not sure about mostly any other MMOs, but the fights don't typically deviate from the initial phases and the initial characteristics of what it is that you're fighting. Also, I would like to add that MMOs by default should be providing that information because you need to know if you're doing well. It's a game that relies heavily on team performance. If one person is lacking, that can absolutely cause for the entire team to wipe. You know,
Yeah, that's
people.
always a debate they have that some people feel it should just be official, like it should be an official thing. And I'm on the side of agreeing that yeah, it should be official. It's up to the player to enable it or disable it, and as long as you're not getting personal and shaming anybody, but if you're doing it on like a random fucking pub dungeon and you're making fun of the guy who's not doing the best, yeah, okay, maybe chill out a bit. But like Kong stated, if you're like a high end raid team and you're like the hardest content in the game, yeah, I'm not looking for perfection because I sure as hell wasn't a fucking god gamer when I raided in 14. But I wanted to make sure that it's not just me at this point; it's 7 other people, and I want to make sure I'm not, I'm pulling my weight, even though it's a video game and it's all pointless in the grand scheme of things. I want to make sure that I'm not wasting other people's time, and we're all contributing equally to downing this big bad boss.
And with that being said, let's talk about mods that maybe we're not okay with. So I think mods are great, generally speaking, especially when it comes to single player experiences. But mods that I'm not okay with would be mods in competitive gaming, right? So
Yeah.
if you're playing a first person shooter, like a battle royale game or something like that, or just a competitive team deathmatch shooter, whatever that looks like. If you have aimbots or wall hacks or things like that, those mods are not okay, right? Like
No,
those
that's
mods are
cheating at that
you're
point.
you're just a fucking cheater, right? Like
Yeah.
at that
Yeah.
point, and some might argue, well, what is the difference between me modding this game and you modding Skyrim? Well, me modding Skyrim is just me and the CPU, me and the computer, me and the NPCs. I'm
Yeah.
not ruining anybody's experiences. This is my game. I can, literally my game. This is my world. I'm the only one in it. I should be able to do whatever I want, right? But
Yeah.
when you're in a shared space, it's different. It's just like if you're in your house and where you live, where you pay rent or mortgage or whatever, you want to walk around naked. Okay, cool. But you can't walk around naked in public spaces, right? It's kind of the same thing. So,
Yeah.
what do you guys think of that?
No, I definitely agree. I don't care for mods that like enhance change the gameplay dramatically. At that point, yeah, like you said, you're cheating, aimbots, wall hacks, that's all cheating. I have no sympathy for that. If you want to do that in your single player game, I'll be like, that okay. But again, like we stated multiple times, it's your world. Play it. If you want to snipe the Imperial Knight from halfway across the map with a bow in Skyrim, fuck it, have fun. I've seen Randy Orton dragons, Thomas the Tank Engines. Like, it's fine. Again, I don't like it because it messes with the lore. But
Hate to correct you, but it's Macho Man Randy
Macho
Savage
Yeah,
Man.
Randy
Dragons,
Savage.
please.
As you
I
can
need you
see,
to get your wrestling
I'm not
characters in order.
a not a wrestler fan. All I know is suck it and you can't can you smell what the Rock's cooking?
You can't
All I
smell
know.
what I'm cooking.
Macho Man's coming for you.
Yeah, I've seen it. I mean,
Dig it.
that's like an iconic one in Skyrim. They replace all the dragons with him, and he has like some weird, horrible arms to make it. It's some nightmare fuel. But yeah, I'm not okay with those mods. I'm not a fan. Again, I call them cheats, but they are mods. They are like literal modifications to the game. But no, I'm not a fan of those at all.
I mean, I wholeheartedly agree. I mean, they're called cheats. They're mods. I mean, Game Genie, same kind of thing. um, I agree with you guys when it comes to modding and competitive play, unless everyone within that
Oh,
room,
that's a good point. Yeah.
unless everybody within that room are doing it, and it's okay to do it. And y'all just doing it in good fun. You're not stealing points from people, because when you're cheating, essentially you're stealing. You can potentially steal points from people because of this. And I say potentially because you can mod stuff and still be bad at the game. I've seen instances where people would mod stuff in the game and it doesn't help them skill wise. It doesn't boost their performance. It doesn't boost their skill level. It's just dead weight, because you didn't earn it. You did not utilize whatever it is that you have correctly. um so yeah, there's instances where that happens. But to answer Kong's point pertaining to having it in multiplayer, I do not condone that whatsoever, unless everybody within the room is doing it and they're just having a good time.
That makes sense. I mean, just to kind of wrap up that point, um, mods. Excuse me, words. I swear I speak English. Mods have existed for a long, long time, and there have been mods that have been enabled and implemented by the very developers that made the very games that we're talking about. So if we go back to like Grand Theft Auto from like the PS2 era, for example, there were cheats that you can put in the game. Like they were just button combinations you put in the game, and it would be a giant tank that just flew from the sky onto the ground. You just get in the tank and you just kind of did whatever, or infinite ammo, or all the weapons unlocked, or blah blah blah. Right? You go far back to fucking Contra and the Contra code, right? Like those are mods too, right? And those mods, I mean, depending on who you asked, some mods were frowned upon, some were fine, right? Kind of depending on how you did it. Maybe I would lose a little more respect for you if I found out that you used the Contra code and you beat Contra with it versus not doing it without the Contra code. It's like, well, you get less gamer points if you did it without the Contra code. Not that I've ever finished the first Contra. I'll admit that. Take my gamer card away if you like. That's fine. I think I'll sleep all right tonight. So there's that, right? I want to just mention that mods are not all evil. There are some mods that are just in good fun, and even developers that put shooting games like Time Splitters, for example. We had a time in college where we played a lot of Time Splitters, and there were like mods like Big Head Mode and like your gun sounds, human gun sounds. So instead of the gun sounds, it would be pew pew pew, stupid shit like that. Right? I love that shit. Those are fun mods, right? That's just to make the game shake it up a little bit. That's okay. Yeah. So pivoting from digital mods or mods that are like programmed, let's talk about mods that are hardware related. So, how do you guys feel about controller mods? So controllers that have, like for example, the Elite controller. We did an episode on controllers, and I talked about the Elite controller and how awesome it was and how great it felt. And I briefly mentioned some of the features that it had, like the back paddle buttons and things like that. Those are features I don't really use, but those are features that some professional players or high-level players use to, to boost their performance, right? There are now products that people use that some would argue give certain players an unfair advantage, like control freaks or grips or Gunneer glasses, the glasses that kind of supposedly help your eyes get less fatigued from playing for long periods of time. Like there are all these like little gadgets that essentially modifies your experience. So what's your take on like physical hardware mods when it comes to gaming, competitive or otherwise?
Yeah, I mean, personally, I don't have an issue with it because of the simple fact that if you're modding something hardware wise, such as a controller, you're doing it for the comfort of your hands. My hands are pretty sizey. They're pretty large, so a controller, I'll have an easy time holding a controller as opposed to someone who may have small hands. And if they were to utilize like a grip, then so be it. That's perfectly fine. Or like let's say someone such as myself who when I play for a long period of time, I have sweaty palms. So sleek controllers such as the PS5 controller tends to slip out of my hands from time to time. I don't think it's an issue adding an attachment to allow myself to have more grip on the controller. Now, if you're doing mods such as like, let's say, for example, you're utilizing a fight stick and it has the ability for you to hold down the button to auto punch, I think that's a pretty shitty mod. I think that's, not cool. I don't know if you would constitute it as a hardware mod. I'm only saying it's a hardware mod in the sense that it was built into the controller, allowing you to do that. But I just feel like that's a pretty, unfair advantage in the sense of you're able to utilize the one frame hits. For those of you who know Street Fighter, you guys understand frames, fighting games or whatnot. You can do one frame hits into a link much easier because you set your controller to have auto punching or auto kicking. And in my opinion, that's an unfair disadvantage. It does fall back into that conversation of, or that statement that we all, unanimously said that if you're doing it in single player mode, that's cool. However, if you're doing it in a competitive mode, that's kind of unfair. Um, so there are stipulations, in my opinion, to that. But in regards to just, oh, I'm adding a grip to my controller, or I'm wearing, you know, glasses so I won't be fatigued, that makes sense. That's perfectly fine in my opinion. Like, shit, for people who um who have to wear glasses because they're unable to see, like, if they put glasses on and I'm able to see the TV fine without glasses because I don't need them, is that an unfair advantage? Like, if you're wearing headphones because you want to hear better, like, is that an unfair advantage? Like, I think to, you know, kind of correlate having certain hardware attachments as having an unfair advantage or being or being a cheat, I find that, in my opinion, to be stupid.
Well, first off, I actually have those blue light blocking glasses. I actually have them. It has nothing to do with gaming, but sometimes my eyes do get eye fatigue from staring at screens, and they do help. At least, I don't know, maybe it's a placebo effect, but they do help me. So, I have those. So, hey, if it's a fucking hack advantage, I'll take it. But funny Kong mentioned those controllers because after that segment, I thought about it, and back when I used to be heavy into Call of Duty, and I would watch a lot of Call of Duty content on YouTube, a lot of the, not a lot, but some of the content creators I would watch, they would talk about the same controllers that eventually became the Xbox Elite controllers and the one that Sony's working on for the PlayStation 5 that had those like paddles on the back. And before you had to get those from like a third party controller company, and now they're official. So what does that tell you? I mean, it tells me that there's a market for that and people want that slight advantage. So Sony and Microsoft are like, fuck it, we'll make our own, get the third party guy out of here, and we'll bring our people, and they'll spend money in house with Sony and Microsoft. So I mean, and even in the Call of Duty days, some people would consider it cheating because it allowed you to maybe shoot faster, throw a grenade easier, and other people call it like, hey, look, if this is an option, if you want to bump up your gameplay, you want to take it more seriously, the controller has only so many buttons, and this adds more. So funny how something that was considered, it was a third party company that made it, and people considered it cheating, almost borderline cheating, is now official, and it's now like they're officially selling these controllers to you. So I mean, look, some of it is maybe gimmicky, right? Some of it's like, oh, this will give you the edge in a game, and it doesn't really do anything. But look, again, it's on you. If you want to buy the controller, because you think you hit the paddle and it shoots the bullet 3 seconds sooner than me with a standard PlayStation controller, hey, fuck it. If you're willing to pay, what, 100 something, almost $200 for a controller, I can't fight you on that one. That's on you, bro. I don't really have a problem with them. It's just,
Yeah, I personally don't see the problem with it as well. It's like, to equate that is like saying, oh, well, if you bought a fight stick for a fighting game, then you're a cheater because you
I'm
want the
pretty sure there
competitive
were
edge.
people that thought that. If you looked hard enough, I'm pretty sure there were people that would call all of us a cheater for owning or using a fight stick.
I wouldn't put it past them, to be honest. I mean, like, what's next? Because I bought the Triton headsets to hear better because the footsteps were distinct depending upon where they were located. So if you heard somebody from your left side, you'll hear it in your right earbud your left earbud as opposed to the right. So is that cheating? I mean,
You asked the right person. I don't.
It depends on who you ask, and I think that's an important distinction to make. And I think it's good that you brought up arcade sticks because I was going to talk about that next. So, for a while, I didn't understand arcade sticks. So I did grow up in the arcade era, but I didn't get
yeah.
to play on arcades too much. So I didn't grow that muscle memory as a kid in arcades. Because listen, whenever I was near the pizza shop or the laundromat or just the actual arcade itself, and I was lucky enough and blessed to get $2 to $3 from my mom to play arcades, I lost that shit in a half an hour. So I didn't build the muscle memory. I'm primarily a console gamer. So I grew up with pad, And yes, I know how to use an arcade stick. Yes, I can use an arcade stick. I'm proficient enough, right, to where I don't completely. I mean, I suck, right, at fighting games, but I can move and I have general control over my character with an arcade stick, whether it be a 3D fighting game or a 2D fighting game. I can perform all right. Um, but I could see why arcade sticks are preferred, right? Because you're using more of the anatomy in your hand to execute moves, right? And so to me, when comparing arcade stick to like the Elite controller, it's kind of the same, right? So they're using your thumb to do all these different things and your pointer fingers to hit the triggers. You're using your other fingers in order to perform other tasks, which takes work, right? You have to build that muscle memory up to actually use a controller at that proficient level. So I think, in my opinion, right, and there are going to be people who disagree, and that's fine. In my opinion, Elite controllers or controllers that provide you different options isn't. I don't think it's cheating. Is it an advantage? Yes. Is it going to be an advantage for everyone? No. Right? Because they're going to be some. Listen, I work in a game store. For a long time, people have spent hundreds of dollars on these controllers and these modifications and these attachments, and they bring them right back because they bought this stuff with the intention or with the expectation that they would get an immediate bump, right? Oh, I didn't realize I had to like practice to get better with this control freak or with these extra buttons. I didn't realize like it's harder to play now. And that's like, yeah, because you've conditioned yourself to play, with the standard controller. Now you're playing with these extra 6 buttons. You have to train your mind, your brain to reload differently or to just play differently. And so people just want a quick fix. However, there is devices that I don't agree with. One that you guys may not know about, and I'm sorry, Gunner, not Gunner, Esoteric, you were gonna interject with something before I bring up this device.
Oh, no, no, no. I was just pretty much, going to piggyback off of what you were saying pertaining to like the transition from a controller to a fight stick. That's equivalent from like a controller to a mouse because they're saying like
Mm.
when you use mouse, you have an advantage. However, it'll probably be a steep learning curve for me because I personally have never played mouse and keyboard like that. I'm not going to be proficient in a couple of hours in it. It's going to take me at
No, it's
least
gonna take
months.
time. Like you got to invest the time, and the statistics are out there, right? Mouse and keyboard players perform at a much higher level than pad players. Period. Like if you compare the numbers as far as like proficiency, like kills per second, and all that, like keyboard and mouse players are obviously superior because of the just the physical advantages that the setup gives you. It's just sorry, right? Most arcade stick players are better than most pad players when it comes to fighting games because of just how the device is built and how it's used. And once you learn how to use a device, you're going to perform better because of just easier, right? It's like riding a bike with training wheels, not riding a bike with training wheels. Like it's just it is what it is. Like there are physical limitations to the human anatomy. So anyway, the device in question is very popular amongst the first person shooter crowd, and that's the Chronos Zen. What the hell is
The
that?
hell is that?
Right? Let me show it to you.
The
This thing is
Zen.
$100, by the way, retail. And we're not sponsored, by the way. So, okay, can you guys see that?
Well,
It looks like it has like 2 US.
Yeah,
I thought it was a mouse.
No, it's a
made by Alienware.
This device that's gonna assist you, right? So I just want to highlight just one little thing here. Once connected, players attach scripts to their Chronos, which gives them in-game benefits. Examples include increased aim assistance, rapid-fire mods, and no recoil macros. Is that fair?
Oh. I would personally think that that's closing in on the side of cheating.
Mm-hmm.
Personally, it's like installing the aimbot, but you don't install it, and you install it on this device instead of on your PC.
Yeah, it's essentially changing software, but in a hardware form. Like That's all
So
it's doing.
so there are players who are really like revolutionary, really good at certain games, right? And they'll practice something in a game, right? So, for example, in a call, this is not a real example. I don't know. I'm just spitballing here, but and I know in some Call of Duty games there are guns that the guns differ in like fire rate and recoil, all this other stuff, right? And then there are ways that you can tap the button to make a gun perform a
Yes.
little better or a little
Yeah.
worse,
That's a
right?
skill level.
That's a skill, right? That's because you have to physically learn how to perform it. It's kind of like learning how to do El Fuete's fucking infinite combo, right?
yeah,
You can do it. The information is out there, but it's up to you to be able to perform it, right?
yeah.
And trust me, I've done it like twice in my entire life, and I practiced that thing forever on pad, and I managed to do it a few times, not in a real match, in like training mode. And Jesus, is it fucking hard? At least for me, it's fucking impossible. The run, stop, drop, combo, whatever. Um, but anyway, that exists in Call of Duty or other shooting games, right? And Gunner
Yeah.
just confirmed it because he's played most of the Call of Duty games, among all of us.
Yeah.
And this Chrono Zen device can mimic that kind of like play style without the execution.
Oh, so it could take. Okay, I see.
So
I
it's
see.
an assist. It's like it's an assist. It's no different than like for example in fighting games where they're implementing the single button combos. It's no different.
Yeah, I mean, to me, that's borderline cheating. Even if you put a script, quote unquote, that can mimic the best Call of Duty player in terms of how he how he flicks the trigger to let off 20 rounds as opposed to a normal Joe Schmo who can only do 10. That's him. That's not you. So at that
Yeah.
point, you're basically just I guess for lack of a better word, you're stealing someone's time and effort and mimicking that using a device.
Mhm.
At that point, you might as well just install the aimbot. Like it's like you're trying to have a moral
Well,
high ground. Yeah, go ahead.
I was just you're right. First of all, I agree with you 100%. But it's you're installing the game bot, the aim bot, without it being detectable. It's not detectable because it's hardware,
It's definitely cheating.
Yeah,
right? So
Because why are you hiding it? You bought this in order to hide the fact that you are cheating.
That's crazy. I didn't even know a thing like that existed. That's
it's sold at
crazy.
GameStop, by the way. It's
Oh shit!
a regular. You can buy a controller just like you could buy that. So
I thought it was Alienware because it looked like it had like the alien symbol on it.
I don't know if it's published by Alienware, but it does have like a little alien logo. But it's Chrono Zen. That's I think that's the brand.
That's
I mean,
that's incredibly cheap in my
that's
opinion.
excessive, especially if you're just buying that to like curb stomp public lobbies. It's just like that's a lot.
It can do these things, right? So I'm on their official website, and I'll share this so y'all can see it. Where are you? Share screen. This one.
Yeah, I think.
Cool. So
I
like
think
you can use. So it's used also if you want to play if you're on PlayStation but you want to use an Xbox controller. It's good for that. It's good for crossover audio. So like let's say if you have a headset that's only compatible with Xbox but you're on PlayStation, it can change that. So it bypasses. It has legitimate uses, but I'm gonna say most consumers get it for that. Modding your controller with scripts feature.
Yeah, that like yeah, if you have an Xbox like arcade stick, but you ended up buying a PlayStation 5 and you don't want to spend another $200 on a PlayStation 5 arcade stick, I would get this so your Xbox arcade stick can work with the PlayStation. That I'm cool with. That's like, hey, $200 is $200. Not all of us have that to just dump on an arcade stick. But when you start talking about mod your controller and you talking about scripts, and that's when you kind of lose me personally.
Yeah, because I'm okay with the physical aspect of modding your controller, because it still takes a skill level for you to actually be in tune with said controller.
And like you said, it
But
doesn't make you better like
yeah,
instantly.
yeah, it doesn't make you better, and it's just a customization on your part to allow yourself to be a little more comfortable in doing said task. But in this particular case, you're not even doing the task; it's doing it for you. So that constitutes, in my opinion, as cheating. It
Yeah, it's like having a script to shop. Like when people were scooping up PlayStation 5s when they first came out, and people had scripts and bots to like beat normal everyday Joes at the digital checkout line. Sure, some could call that I'm modding to gain an advantage. Others were like, bro, you're cheating at buying
yeah,
stuff. Like this is like it's very murky. It's like on one hand, it's got some legitimate uses like the controller and the headset and like the wheels. If you're a Forza or um,
Gran
what's
Turismo.
Sony's Gran Turismo, right? If you're kind of that guy, I've seen people with crazy setups. That's fine. Like if you want to buy one driving wheel but use it on both consoles, that's cool because that shit's expensive. I
yeah.
get that, but when you start that script thing, that's making me leery.
Yeah, it's completely understandable to utilize it for swapping systems because the functionality is still there. You're still going to have to utilize the item you have the same exact way. The only thing that is doing is probably adjusting a circuit to allow you to use it from
Yeah,
one
because that's all
specific
it is.
way.
It's just like something that's reading this as an Xbox peripheral as opposed to a Sony, so Sony's gonna block. That's just like that's business. That's two competing corporations. So the fact that this can bypass that, I'm cool with. It's the
Yeah.
script part. I keep going back to the script part because it's like, what kind of scripts can you do? Can you like, oh, detects human, aim for head instantly? Like, I don't know. I don't
Maybe
know.
I don't know. All I know it exists. I did some light research on it because I was curious. Right, I work in a game store, so I see this product. I'm like, what the fuck is this thing? And I'm like, okay, well, it's it's part of my job to know what these things are to a certain degree. So and once I saw like make controllers cross compatible, make headsets cross compatible, make your system compatible with keyboard and mouse. I'm like, okay, this seems harmless. And then I stumble across the script thing, and I'm like, ooh, this is a gray area here.
Yeah, it really is. Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, that's
So
yeah, that's kind of like the stain on the item because I if it meets a lot of great points, but I'm pretty sure if I was to show my friends, oh, look what I got, they'd look at me like, I wonder what's the real reason why you bought that thing.
I definitely look at people funny when they ask for it. They go, "Oh, do you have this in stock?" I'm like, "You're a piece of shit." Like, and for all I know, they just wanted to play keyboard and mouse on their Xbox. For all I know, could be right, but let's be real, probably not.
I think a lot of no, I don't know. I have nothing to base, but I feel like a lot of people are looking at the script part and going, "Hey, if that gets me a higher KD in Warzone, hey, and I gotta spend a couple bucks to do it, I don't get banned because they don't detect it on my PC or my console. Hey, I'm just saying."
So I don't know, and that kind of spawned an idea. Like, this is usually something I would bring up outside of the recording, but this could be a podcast topic in the future. The cost of winning, like what, when is enough, right? Like, at what point do we trade in our honor, air quotes, as players, as gamers, as competitors, for the win, for the W, right? What are we willing to do to win? That could be a
Oof.
topic we do in the future, and
That's a very, very subjective gray area topic right there. Because it's
because
like some people will buy mods and some people will pick characters that excel better than others to it's
yeah,
that's a
and like
very good topic to have.
what's the what do you draw the line, right? Like, is buying DLC like I think we had a topic about free to play like cell phone games or whatever, and
Yeah.
games that have like like Pokemon Unite, for example, where you can buy items or you can level up your items with
Yeah,
physical
yeah,
money. Like, is that
Yeah.
cheating? Is that the
yeah.
line
And I
for some
remember
people?
Zeta said it's not a problem, and I was like, but even though it's a small advantage,
It's still an
it's
advantage.
still an advantage.
And it's
Yeah.
still a measurable advantage. Like, you know
It,
exactly how much the advantage is.
it
I
is
don't
an
know.
advantage. It is an advantage, but what I would like to add to that is that it's also, which is also probably can be rebutted or whatever. Um, it's an in-game asset that's accessible to everyone. You
But
know,
is it accessible to everyone? This is where we get lost in the weeds, right? It's like,
but that's the thing. You know, I can't fault somebody who has more money than me and decides to allocate it towards that. I mean, I'll probably be really upset, you know, because he's beating my ass because he ain't put in any work. He paid for his way to go, but
mhm.
I don't know, man. It's the gray area, man.
Yeah,
Let me gather
it's
my
really,
thoughts and I'll
it's
think
really
about
great.
it.
So okay, that'll be a future topic, right?
Yeah,
We'll figure it out, and I'll articulate it better in our chat so that the other guys can like prepare for it, because that's the topic I kind of want to come in prepared with some
yeah.
examples and, you know, maybe some
Yeah,
articles that we can
definitely.
reference to have like a really fruitful conversation. So but yeah, that's our podcast episode for the week, talking about mods, both, you know, I guess programmed mods and then also physical hardware mods. I thought this was a pretty good episode. I hope you guys enjoyed it. Who, you know, if you're listening, you made it this far, I appreciate you very much. You know, leave a like or a dislike on the video, comment, let us know what you think. What's your stance? You know, are you okay with Chrono Zen Max? Are you an anti cheat? Got like an anti mod guy across the board? Like, what's your stance on that? Subscribe for more content. We do podcasts every single week. We publish every Wednesday at 12 p.m. Eastern. We also run a Discord. We have a Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. All those links will be in the description down below. So if you're interested in exploring any of those things, it's there. It's available to you. We also do other types of videos. So we do 2-minute reviews on various products, mostly, you know, video games. We also do long form gameplay content. We plan to do some other stuff. Not too sure yet, but right now, definitely you're going to get your hour-long podcast once a week. And also, Mr. Esoteric runs the main channel on Twitch, so he streams 2 to 3 times a week. He mostly plays like AAA games, some party games like Splatoon or Mario Party, Fall Guys, things like that. He also plays Horizon and God of War, some of the mainstream stuff. So check him out there. Give him a follow so that you're notified when he goes live. I also stream once in the blue moon, so if you want to follow me, you can give me a follow, BlankaKong on Twitch. So thank you guys again. Appreciate you very much. We'll talk to you in the next one. Peace.
Till next time.
Take care.